Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to continue with our pliers wrench series, and we are going to take a look at the German-made Hazet. Now these are pretty interesting pliers because they have a different means of adjustment. I'm going to be real curious to see how these stack up compared to the other versions we've looked at. These are made in Germany, if you're keeping track, and they have just a unique way of how they make the adjustment, and that is this push button right here. You push that button, it pulls this tang out, and that is how you adjust these pliers. So the concern that I always have with pliers is you're outside of the confines of the tool with the adjustment, and you can get a nuisance adjustment. Now the trade-off is this tang sticks out, but you still, if you push that flush, you don't get the nuisance adjustment. You have to go in further beyond. This piece of adjustment on the handle, that has to go in as well, further than the lines of the tool. So this tool is very much designed in a way to minimize that nuisance adjusting. So if you have frustrations with that nuisance adjustment, this is probably the best version out on the market to neutralize that. So let's dig into these. A lot of times we like to take a bunch of measurements so we can compare jaw sizes, how hard they are, and everything else. So we're going to go ahead and start with how wide these are. And these are right at 5/16 on the movable jaw and 5/16 on the fixed jaw. You can get something 1.5 inches deep on these, no problem. So these are probably one of the deeper ones we've seen at 1.5 inches. The key size, I don't know how important it is, but I like to record it because I'm just going to be curious to see from the stats what that gets us. And we are right at 5/16, I think I'm going to go with. Yeah, that's 5/16. Verify here on the other side. Yep, that's a 5/16 key. And the other measurement we like to check is handles fully closed, all the way open. How big of an object can I get on? I'd say we're 1 7/8 with the handles closed, and full open you can get 2 3/16. But as we've said many times, handles open like this are not an overly usable tool. At the 2 inches that they advertise, I would say that's a usable tool yet. So 1 7/8 and 2 1/4. Yeah, that time I got 2 1/4. I must not have had it all the way. Another thing we like to look at here is how much weight could you expect to carry around if you got yourself a pair of these. And these will add about 20.3 ounces to your tool carry. Now, something else that I should mention is these are fairly expensive as well. These are, I believe, the second or third most expensive pair we looked at in this series. These, I just looked them up at time of filming here, retail for around $85. So these are not cheap, but they are a very finely made quality tool, and we'll get a little bit better look at that when we get to the microscope and everything else. Another thing I like to look at when we test these is how well do the jaws fit together and how tight is the overall pliers assembly. And I gotta say, these are super tight. They do not have much play in them at all. These jaws go right together, perfectly centered every time. I can't even really force them out of center by pushing on them. This is a tight pair of pliers. Very well made, which you would expect from the country of origin. Next up, we like to check how hard these jaws are and what the durometer, or how the grip feels on these plier handles. And to do that, we're going to check the hardness with the Rockwell C-scale files here. Each one of these files basically digs in at a different hardness. And we're going to check the durometer with the Shure A-scale meter that we have here to give us an idea of what we can expect there. Digging in on the hardness, I am going to start with the 55, optimistically. And that is just barely, if at all. That's just skating. That is just skating on the movable jaw. It might be starting to dig in on the fixed. Actually, we're just starting to dig in with the 60 on the fixed. It's not digging in easy, that's for sure. This is a pretty hard set of pliers. There we have good resistance. So I'm going to actually go out on a limb and say these pliers are a 60 to 65, which is the hardest we've had that we've checked here. These are very, very hard. Now, what makes that important is, what are you wrenching on? If you're wrenching on stuff, I'm going to be very curious to see what happens when we go for the 100 foot-pounds with a hardened hexed Allen. So what we'll do next is we'll go to the vise, and we're going to try and get to 100 foot-pounds with this tool on a hardened hex Allen drive socket and see what marks get made on the jaws. We've done it with all of the pliers so far, and it's just an interesting, take them up to 100 foot-pounds on something hard, what's going to happen to the jaws of these pliers. So let's keep moving and take a look at what our durometer is with our Shure A scale. And all we're going to do is push this meter in, and we see we have 72 there, 73 there, 73.5. We could probably safely say that's a 73. Can I get this intermediate one? I don't know if I can. We might have to do it this way. Yeah, I'm not going to get that. So this tool, you need to have this pin go up inside of it in order to get an accurate reading. So what we do is we push this up against here, because this is a radius that goes this way. If I tried to do it in here, I may not get the same reading, which I'm getting a very close to the same reading, but you see there, we're not getting exactly the same. So we're going to go with a 73 and a 60 to 65 on these. Okay, we are over at the vise with the Hazet, and we're going to see, I'm going to grip this in the middle and see how much force we can get to 100 foot-pounds on this. Here we go. I got 97.9 out of it. I would say we can get 100 out of that. Okay, and we're back. We were able to get to our 100 foot-pounds. Let's take a look in the microscope and see what that did. So we'll get this thing opened up. Oh, that's interesting. We created a little bit of a stiff spot in the mechanism. So we might have stretched these a little bit. We might have to look into that a little bit and see what happened to these. See right there where we were? A little bit of a stiff spot. Interesting. Well, let's take a look here at our fixed jaw. And we can see that we did indeed make a little bit of a mar mark, an indent in this, and I can definitely feel that with the scale. See if I can get it in focus here. Can definitely feel that with the scale. A little bit of a mar, but I can feel that. nothing bad. I was actually expecting this to not have that from how hard it seemed to be with the HRC file. Now, I know you can have an external hardness that is harder than, or a surface hardness that is harder than the inner metal. Without cutting these things up, I'm not going to easily get that, so all of our Rockwell measurements are going to be surface. I just don't have the budget to destroy all of these tools for that other reading. And then here's our movable jaw, and you can see we definitely fractured whatever skin was on this. I wonder if I could get that in a different view. But you can see the little cracks in it. There we go. So that mill scale or scaling was coming off. And you can see we have just a line right here that I very clearly hook on in the finish. So that's interesting. Overall, the tool didn't fare too bad. Here's our finish. Now we are doing kind of an extreme test at the 100 foot-pounds, I think. Finish is very nice. Nicely put together. There's our set. Here's your made in Germany. Get that into focus. There we go. That's your part number. Coming down through to the handle. That's very porous. And there's some grip on the black part. Coming back the other side. Here's those adjustment teeth, and I'm wondering, I'm going to have to take some time and look, but I'm wondering where we put that wear now that this thing gets a stiff spot in the adjustment after we took it to 100 foot-pounds. Here's the other side. Here's your adjusting mechanism, which I think is great. That's just, it's a nice design. It's very simple, but gets the job done. There's your jaw. Got a little bit of a mark in it now after our test. And then here are your laser etched millimeter marks. See a little bit of a shiny spot there. I'm not sure if that's where we're dragging, if we bent something when we went to 100 foot-pounds, or what's going on. But I'll take a look off camera and see if I can find what's going on there. But there you have it. Okay, we are back over at the load cell vise with the Hazet, and what we're going to do is two different tests. We're going to test these pliers with the load cell all the way on the outside, and we're going to slide it all the way on the inside. And that's going to kind of tell us how much these pliers flex between the two tests. So we're going to get this back out. We're going to get these handles kind of set that we're exerting some force. We're going to go to 5. That's 44. And these are open a little bit more, about 2 3/4. Now we're going to go right up to 75. Okay, a little bit over. Call that 570 and 2 1/8. Get that cranked back off. Just for a sanity check to see if I can by hand get up into the 500s. And I could go up to 600. So I think we're within reason in our testing. So here we'll start here with the load cell all the way in We'll get to 5 again. There we go. 5 is 45. 2 3/4. And let's get to 75. Five, 75. And 2 5/16. We'll back that off. And just to see if I can get to 575. Yes, I can. I can get up pretty high there, 590. So, I'd say that is a good test on that. Okay, so there we go. There's a look at the Hazet 10-inch set of pliers. And I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed with these. I really like the adjustment on them. They have a good set of jaws, although we saw marring on them with the 100 foot-pound test, and I really didn't think we were going to. That was kind of surprising, I must say. And we do have a little bit of a stiff spot in the adjustment after that high torque test. So I'm not sure. It looks like if you look inside of here, there's some marking right here, and I can feel that. So I think I might have to take some burrs off there, and this thing will probably be back to usual. So I think when we were putting that high of a torque on it, that we just kind of forced things. I really do not think these pliers are meant to go for a all-in on a 100 foot-pounds test. That really seems to be a little excessive for these pliers, and I think all of them were being stretched to their limits with the tests that we're doing. I went with that 75 number on the load cell because I was able to, with 2 hands, achieve 75 force. I think that's really pushing these things as well. So I don't think that's overall reflective of the tool. I don't think you're going to have a lot of problems if you use them normally. I'm going pretty excessive with these for testing, but this is the only pair that we experienced some sort of issue with after we, at least trying to adjust things. And they're still obviously adjustable, but there is a spot right there that they hang up. So, and that is where we were for the 5/8 test. So, that aside, the quality of these pliers is really high. I know that sounds silly because we have a mark, but the machining, the way they're put together, fit and finish, very good. Is there a design issue with them? I don't know that there's an issue. Like I said, I really doubt the manufacturer of these has somebody going up to 100 foot-pounds on an object in mind for these pliers. They're 10 inches long. That's kind of an excessive amount of force for them, which is why I thought I'd see if I could get to it and see what happens with them. But if you use these for sensible work, the ability to adjust this without, it's just so seamless and easy. It really is very nice and nice to work with and nice to have. Just grab it, use it. It's a great pair of pliers. Would I spend as much money as these are when you can spend 2/3 as much and get a pair of these? I don't think so. If this is something that would mean a lot to you, like it does to me, I think it's probably worth it. If this doesn't bother you, I don't think it's worth it. These are far more readily available. They'll get the job done. These didn't mar up as much on our 100 foot-pound test. In fact, the jaws on these we could barely see any marks on at all. So these held up very well. These do have some marks. While that was an extreme test, that does show that you're going to have, in extreme situations, you're going to have the tools having issues before this. So overall design, amazing. I really like the way this adjusts. I like the handles. The grip on them is very nice. The angle of the tool, everything, it's just a little bit steeper than the Knipex. You should be able to make that out in the video. I think that is the sort of stuff that if you get a deal on these, get these on sale or something like that around this price, I definitely get them. There's no question. These are a great pair of pliers. As long as you're not doing anything super squirrely, you aren't going to have the problem that I currently have with these, and I'll see if I can clear that up and maybe we'll do a follow-up video. But overall, I think they're a good quality pair of pliers, and if I broke these beyond use, I probably would replace them because I like them that much. If you're looking to save on your money though, I'd probably go with the Knipex. If you're looking for a good, ergonomic, useful pair of pliers, these are a contender, especially if you can get them on sale. Let me know your thoughts below. Do you have a set of these? Have you used them? Do you have a similar issue with adjusting getting kind of stiff at some point? Or am I just the only idiot that tries to take them up to 100 foot-pounds and ends up with a sticky spot? Let me know your thoughts below. It's all in the fun of testing and checking out these tools and seeing how they hold up. I really enjoyed making this series and getting into these tools, so that's something that it's just kind of fun to play around with here in the shop and to put some information out for people if they're curious about these pliers. So weigh in on what you think. I'll be curious to read it. It'll help some people out in the comments below. So as always, thanks for watching. Have a great day.